And my mom was a little bit kinder. She'd be like, honey, don't forget to take out the trash. I'd be like, oh, yeah, I got this. And so I go and do it. But my dad was not as gracious. He'd say, he said, son, why do I need to keep reminding you of this? Son, I told you how to do it. You know how to do it. This is every single week. I think it was Tuesdays. Tuesdays are trash day. Monday night, make sure you get that trash out. Simple. You need to get it done. It's your responsibility. And, then I'd say, okay, Dad, I'm sorry. And I just go about doing my thing again. And I can remember this one week when I came home from school. I finished my homework, and I was playing video games, okay? That was a big thing for me when I was a teenager. I'd play video games, and so we had an attic. We had an attic in our house, and it was all finished off, and it was like our game room. We had ping pong table, we had foosball up there, and then we had a projector screen to where I could play my video games on. And so I'm sitting up there, I got all my stuff done, in my mind, and so I'm sitting there and I'm just going at it. I'm having a time, and I'm in the zone, and I'm not moving. I'm not moving from that place. And I hear a door creak because we lived in an old colonial home in upstate New York, and those doors just creaked and the floors creaked, and so I heard the door creak, and I hear footsteps, and so I lower the volume down. I'm like, Dad? And so Dad comes up, and he's like, son, it's starting to get late. You've been out here long enough. Get off the game and go take care of your responsibility to take out the trash. And I said, oh, I was planning on doing it, Dad. I was planning on doing it. Don't worry. It's going to get done. And he said, okay, thank you. And so he goes down, and I just continue going at it. I'm at it. I'm going at it. And the night's getting close, okay? It's starting to get dark. I think it was summertime at this point. And, so longer evenings, but it was getting dark, the sun was starting to set, and I'm just still going at it, have not moved from that spot. And this time, I hear at the door, I'm like, oh boy. And he said, son, it's getting dark, you better get off and do it. And I said, okay. So I did get off, but I went to bed, and I forgot about the trash. So you can imagine 2 weeks of trash building up in our garage. And at that point, when I had realized that I had done it, I go out, and I do my responsibilities. And of course, my dad was there at this point. And so I go out and I do it, and there are maggots coming out of the trash. There's a stench that is ungodly. And the aroma, it was so bad that there was markings in our garage floor because it was just seeping through. And I'm like, oh, good. And then, on top of that, we had double the trash. So, and you can't, unless you go and buy tons of trash bags, which they're not cheap out that way or anywhere really. And you had to go buy certain blue trash bags, extra large, whatever, from your local grocery store or whatever, and my dad comes out there and he sees that, and he was so disappointed. He was so upset. And, you think about it, I didn't listen. I knew what I needed to do. I was reminded of what I needed to do, and time again, what happened? I neglected it. I neglected my responsibility. And, if I would have just done what my dad needed me to do, none of that problem would have happened. My ears heard, but I never did what needed to be done. And as a result, it was a mess. And, how true is that when we read the Word of God sometimes? We hear it preached all day Sunday. We hear it on Bible classes on Wednesday nights. And, we just let it pass our ears. We just let it go in one ear, and we never let it really penetrate our heart to make the changes that we need. And we're so guilty of that. I'm guilty of that. His word ought to make us do and accept certain things, wouldn't you say? It ought to cause us to make changes that need to be made in our lives. And how much you really love God will show forth in how you listen to his word. And, James here, he's trying to communicate to this church of believers that the only way for us to resist our lust and not fall into sin is not just through knowing the word of God, because anyone who's been in church for any period of time could really begin to know what you think you need to know from the word of God. He said it's not just knowing the word of God, but it's obeying it and doing what it says. And ultimately, and you may think I'm wrong here, we can still be friends. Ultimately, there's no point to the word of God in the life of a believer if all you do is hear it and never change anything. It's pointless. And this is where we are this morning. How can a believer have ears that do the word of God? Well, let's look at it. In verses 19 through 21, we see that James, he gives instructions on how to properly accept the word of God into our hearts. Look at verse 19. It says, "Wherefore, my beloved brethren, let every man be swift to hear, slow to speak, slow to wrath." And then it continues on in thought, "For the wrath of man worketh not to the righteousness of God." So clearly, God saved all of us. bitterness and rage-filled individuals.